The Ibanez Prestige is available at different price points. Commonly through my videos, I call them lower tier and higher tier Prestiges to describe this. But is there really a difference between these two? Is there a difference in craftsmanship? Is there a difference in playability? This video will describe this. At the lower price point, you're closer to the Indonesian-made guitars. At the higher end, you're firmly in Japanese-made price range. Now I'm gonna jump right in soon, but first I have to say that I am not sponsored by any of the brands shown in this video. I have to let you know I'm just a guy on the internet who clearly likes guitars, but I'm not in any amazing touring bands. I'm not a guitar virtuoso. I am doing like the YouTube thing, I'm doing the casual online music stuff, I'm putting my music on streaming services, so check that out if you feel like it. But let's jump right in and let's start with the surface level. Let's start with the looks of the guitars. Whether it's the less expensive or more expensive Prestige, both of these look great. I have received compliments on all of my Prestige Ibanez guitars. Whether they are the less expensive option, the more expensive option, whether they have like some kind of wood, you can kind of see the ash through this, whether they're solid finish colors, they are handsome looking guitars. So if you're looking to buy a Prestige to look the part, you can rest assured that no matter which price point you get, it's going to be legit. Now that we've got the superficial out of the way, let's talk about craftsmanship. I have to say that both high-end and low-end Prestige guitars have had issues. On the higher-end side, I did have a white Prestige with EMGs, and the high E string was just too close to the edge of the fretboard. It was unplayable. I had to sell it. And this particular guitar right here, the neck pickup actually, the connections, the soldering somewhere has kind of fallen off. And so the neck pickup on here actually doesn't make any noise anymore, which is understandable for a budget guitar, but for a high-end guitar like this that you're spending over $2,000 USD for, that's kind of unacceptable. I know I make a lot of videos talking about guitar, but I do play a lot of music too, so I don't really have time to go around picking out wires trying to fix guitars. At the same time, the quote-unquote lower-end Prestiges too, they have issues. Like this guitar right here, the neck, they must have either forgot or something about the finish on the back of the neck, so this neck was completely unfinished. Usually they have like a Prestige kind of finish that feels played in, and they apply this to their guitar. But on this guitar in particular, they just must have not finished it. They didn't put any on there, which is kind of fine because I do play all the guitars I buy. So for me, the solution is just to play it, and I have, and it's been working. Of course, I've corroded the bridge a little bit, but that's with any of these bridges. You play it, it'll corrode. But if you're buying a guitar that isn't cheap, admittedly, you would expect them to spray on the Prestige finish or whatever they call it, spray onto the neck, if you're going to go ahead and buy the Japanese-made quote-unquote Prestige. I got the RG550 Genesis, which isn't technically a Prestige, but it is made in Japan. And that neck is fantastic, but it did have the finishing spray a bit more than this right here, although not as much as here, which is interesting because that's the cheapest of these three guitars I'm talking about right now. Although this guitar here, which squarely falls in the middle of the price, had the least amount of finish. So go figure. And then there's the question of the frets. Obviously, the higher tier Prestiges these days, they have the stainless steel frets. So those are virtually indestructible. You will wear them down eventually over time. But these haven't had any kind of signs of wear. These are starting to show some signs of wear. And my first Prestige I got back in 2013, my RG550, I have had to re-level those frets. Whereas my J Custom that I got a few years ago, those also have nickel silver frets, but I haven't had to do anything to those frets. Those have been pretty bulletproof. So it seems like they use higher quality or at least harder nickel silver on the J Customs versus the quote-unquote low-tier Prestige. You could argue, okay, your 2013 Prestige, you've played it more, of course you're going to need to re-level it, and that's fair. But this guitar I got a few years ago, just like the J Custom, yet this is showing more signs of wear, even though I've actually played the J Custom more. And to clarify, I'm not against them using more budget materials on a more budget guitar. But if you're watching this video and you're wondering the difference between like a more expensive Prestige and a less expensive Prestige, if you play a lot of guitar and you're trying to budget for things, you should know that these frets are going to wear down a whole lot faster. If I didn't have all these guitars, as you can see behind me, to evenly distribute the playing wear, these frets would probably have been worn down by now, and I probably would have had to refret this. So if you don't have a luthier in your area to refret it, that's something you should know when you're considering purchasing a guitar. Alright, now let's talk about the playing feel of these guitars. I can confidently say that whether it's the lower tier Prestige or the higher tier Prestige, they both play excellently. I'm not an Ibanez fan just because I like the name. They play real good. Of course, there are slight neck profile variations between the models, no matter which price point you're at. I remember when I bought my RG550, I was kind of shocked at first because the neck profile was different than what I was used to, but it was so comfortable. I played it for several hours and then realized, okay, this is good. And since then, I do have several Prestiges at this price point, and they do have slightly different neck profiles. Not like extremely different, only more like if you play a lot of guitar and you play a lot of guitars, you would notice the slight less than 1 millimeter differences. Like we're talking fractions of millimeters here and there, different neck, shoulders, stuff like that. But if you just pick up one of these and you don't play them that often, they are going to feel the same. Between these two guitars, I actually like the neck profile on this one right here, the RG650. And this is the quote-unquote low-tier one. But this neck profile was so perfect. It was just too much fun to play. It is also nice that it is ash too. It's nice and light. Of course, I do love this one too. Even though I said this one's neck profile is better, it's only better by like 2%, like not much. Again, if you play a lot of guitar and you play a lot of these guitars, then you will start to notice the extremely slight differences. And I am splitting hairs here, but that is for the sake of this conversation. Of course, in terms of specs, I will always prefer the stainless steel frets. Ebony on a fretboard will always be my favorite, although it doesn't matter to me so much that I will hate things like maple or Richlight or rosewood. No, I still play those. And of course the bodies feel the same. It's literally the same shape. Of course, in terms of playability, the bridges, they are different bridges. You do have the low pro edge here on the more expensive one, and you have the Edge Pro here, which feels more like a Floyd Rose. So on the Edge Pro, of course, you can see the fine tuners come up there, versus the low pro edge, it's a lower profile, hence the name. And so I do prefer the low pro edge just because there's less in your way. I do prefer the feel of that. But I don't hate Floyd Roses and the Edge Pro. If I had to play this bridge for the rest of my life, that would be okay. So if that really matters to you, maybe it would be worth spending the extra money to get that low pro. But it's by no means the end of the world. You do have Floyd Rose, like this kind of bridge style, on high-end signature guitars, on custom shop guitars, etc. And then in terms of sound, both are resonant, both sound extremely great, so it really comes down more to the pickups that are in it. If you believe in tone wood, then maybe the woods too. But yeah, the pickups in it, things like that, these matter more than the price point of the Prestiges. So which of these would I choose? You're watching the video, you want to know which one would I pick. And of course I could say the safe answer. Of course I wouldn't pick just one. Obviously I bought more than one, so I didn't pick just one. And there is merit in the question of one versus many. You could argue, okay, you might not care about the fret wear on one guitar if you have 10 guitars to distribute them across. So my answer to this question is twofold. If I could pick just one guitar, I would pick the more expensive one because I do prefer the stainless steel, the ebony fretboard, all that stuff. It's just a personal preference of mine. If you like the nickel silver, if you like things like rosewood or maple, you know, power to you. These are just tools to make music. They're tools of our trade. And you have to pick the right tool for the job. Of course, you do have to consider that the price difference between them, like $500 or $600 USD, you could buy an audio interface, a DAW, some plugins, some digital instruments with that price difference. So you could buy this, which I did say I preferred the neck profile on, and you could buy your audio interface, your DAW, 1 or 2 plugins, all that stuff, enough you need to make music, make full albums, post them on the internet, upload them to streaming services. You could have a whole music career with this. Just make sure you save some budget to refret it once you do wear the frets down. And if you either prefer the feel of the nickel silver frets or you're just trying to save some money, that would be perfectly valid too. So especially if you're starting from scratch and you're trying to launch your music career right now, you could save some money, get a guitar like this, worry about the refretting later. It's all in the budget, how much money you're gonna make. You know, maybe you have a day job that's gonna pay out later and you can afford that refret. So hopefully this was some useful information. Did I miss anything? Did I answer all your questions? Let me know down in the comment section below. You know, this is YouTube, so I have to say the YouTube things. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the video, print out every frame and mail it, hand it out to all your coworkers and friends. And as always, peace.